rightfully said, my name is Alicia and I'm a Children's Orientation and Mobility Specialist in the Children's Department at Guide Dogs Victoria. So a lot of people, when they think about guide dog agencies, they obviously think about guide dogs, but we do a lot more than just provide guide dogs to people that are blind and vision impaired. A very important part of our role in Victoria and the children's team is to work with children that are blind and vision impaired. So I actually don't do anything with dogs, it's all just working with children. So what is orientation and mobility? Oh, sorry. Orientation is knowing where you are, knowing where you want to go, and knowing how you're going to get there. Mobility is being able to travel safely and effectively. While orientation and mobility services are not often accessed until a child has lower levels of vision, there is lots that you as parents can do to build up your child's O&M skills now to prepare them to be confident future travellers. Something that I always tell parents is that it's not the level of vision or hearing that dictates how confident your child is going to be at getting around. It's experience, attitude, exposure, training and motivation that are often the greater determinants. An orientation and mobility specialist, we call ourselves O&M for short, work with children who are vision impaired, their families and other professionals to support goals of independent travel and movement in a range of different environments. This can include travel around education settings and in the community, and O&Ms of course also work with adults. I just wanted to mention there's been some discussion about criteria for services for vision. At Guide Dogs Victoria, we don't actually have a defined level of vision that your child has to have before they can receive services from us. So the instance where the parent was talking about their child that was having difficulty perhaps in the classroom with glare and other issues with their vision, but they weren't yet in range to receive services from the visiting teacher service, you could still contact us and we would come out and work with your child. And often when a child goes through EVAC, if they don't actually meet the criteria, very often a referral is still sent through to us, particularly if it's a condition that is going to degenerate. So the first photo on the first slide is of the team of 8 children's O&Ms at Guide Dogs. The second is a photo of some road crossing toys, a tool we use a lot to teach children about road rules to make it fun. The third is a photo of 3 students on a recent mobility camp holding up a sign saying travel west 40 metres for an activity on distance and direction. And the fourth photo is of one of the new fancy PTV trains because teaching public transport travel is a really big part of our role. I often get asked by parents, so what can I do to encourage orientation and mobility skills and movement in my toddler, child and teenager? There is lots that you can do now to prepare your child for the future. As Usher syndrome is a very individual condition with varying levels of hearing, vision and vestibular issues, my recommendations today are very general and I encourage you to speak with an O&M if you would like more specific advice. The photos on the slides are of a child who has climbed up onto play equipment, having a lovely time, and a child crossing a road with their parent. A really important thing to remember is that your child needs motivation to move, no matter what age they are. I'm sure parents with teenagers sitting on couches can certainly resonate with that. And the picture on the slide is that of a dangling carrot, because the carrot definitely works better than the stick in this instance. Encourage your child to explore activities and environments. You can do this by placing appealing visual or auditory objects just out of reach. Get down on the floor with your child and ask her to move towards you. Once walking, encourage your child to travel greater and greater distances towards a sound or visual object they enjoy. Take your child to the playground regularly and encourage them to climb, slide and swing, which will build strength and enjoyment in being active. Play on the playground with them so they know that you enjoy being active with them too. Enroll them in activities such as gymboree or kids gymnastics. If your child has a vestibular issue, a physiotherapist can certainly help you with a lot of these activities. As your child gets older, it's really important to take them on travel adventures that don't include your car. So plan an exciting trip to a toy shop at your local shopping centre, but walk to the bus stop, train or tram stop and get there by public transport. Teach your child about crossing roads, My Key tickets or the equivalent in your state, finding visual and tactile landmarks along the way, and catch a taxi home at the end of the adventure. Try to think of places you travel to as a family that you could start accessing by public transport, such as footy games, the airport and concerts. The more experience they get as a young person, the more their confidence will grow. And kids tend to just love going on public transport. It's like going on Thomas the Tank Engine, but it's a PTV train. So really get out there and let them have those experiences. Children with Usher syndrome may not be able to obtain a driver's licence. So good public transport skills are imperative to be a successful adult traveller. Teaching your child public transport skills while they have good usable vision will make travel as adults easier, as many of the required skills and concepts will already be mastered. It's also really important to give your child an understanding of spatial concepts, positional concepts, and laterality. Your child has an excellent ability to develop these concepts while they have good usable vision, and they will use this understanding for travel now and into the future. The first picture on the slide is of a 90-degree angle, and the second is of two hands with left hand and right hand written on them. Walk with your child around your house, visit her bedroom, bathroom, etc. Discuss which room is closer to the lounge room, which room is biggest, which room has the highest ceiling. Use words in your everyday talking, such as underneath, on top of, behind, and next to, while explaining, showing, and exploring with your child. It's never too early to do this. Even when dressing your baby, tell her you are putting her sock on her right foot and putting her left arm through her jumper sleeve to develop laterality. As your children get older, show and explain what parallel, perpendicular, 90-degree turns, 180-degree turns are, as they will be used when learning travel routes with lower levels of vision. So important in orientation and mobility is to teach your children to follow directions, as they'll need to follow directions when travelling. The picture on the slide is of a signpost saying directions on two different signs. Start with a familiar routine and ask your child to perform a task, such as hold your spoon, and praise her when she follows the direction. Gradually increase the number of directions to 3 or 4. This will then lead to more complex directions, such as pop your drink bottle on the bottle trolley, then go hang your bag on the hook at preschool. Once your child is older, the direction could be walk down the street, turn left at the second road, and then turn right at the 4th driveway to enter the house. At its most basic, a travel route is simply a sequence of steps from one landmark to another. Having an expectation that your child begins to follow basic sequential directions is a fantastic way to foster good route travel skills for the future. It's important to help your child obtain safe and positive mobility experiences in order to increase her confidence. You don't need to bubble wrap your whole home, as someone very nicely did on the picture in this slide, but try and keep the ground free of tripping hazards, keep furniture in the same position, and use high contrast where you can. And try to remember that bumps and falls happen to all children, and if you're relaxed and calm when it happens, it encourages your child to feel positive about exploration. Teach your child about body concepts. The picture on the slide is of a toddler with about 30 of his different body parts labelled. You can do this by singing songs about the parts of the body, talk about movements your child makes, such as great job reaching up high, that was a big step down, and your hat goes on your head. Yoga is a fantastic activity to teach children about their bodies, how they move, improve balance, and also give them tools to be mindful, calm their thinking, and reduce anxiety. You could apply for support in your child's NDIS plan for them to access a children's yoga class if extra support was required. It's also important to develop sensory awareness in your child. Your child will likely be predominantly a visual learner in her early years, but encourage her to use and think about her other senses when interacting with the world. The picture on the slide is of little ears for hearing, a tongue for tasting, a nose for smelling, eyes for seeing, hand for touch, balance for vestibulation, and a little guy with a blindfold on for proprioception. For your child or teenager to travel effectively through the world with reduced sight, she needs to learn to pay attention to important information and at the same time filter out information that's not important. She needs to pay attention to visual landmarks, textures, smells, changes in temperature, wind and sound. Take your child outside to see, smell and touch the world and describe what she is experiencing as it is happening. Build her descriptive language for these experiences. This is a question I often get asked by parents. Does my child need a cane? The picture is of two different types of canes. The one on the bottom is the typical Australian cane, it's a Beveria one. The one at the top is one of the fancy new Ambertech canes, which come in all sorts of different colours. The decision of whether your child needs a cane should always be assessed by a qualified orientation and mobility specialist. But some indicators for parents to look out for include bumping into objects or other people, false stepping or hesitancy at stairs and drop-offs. And by false stepping, I mean your child will be lifting their leg up to step into the shadow or something like that when there's actually nothing there, because that can indicate that there might be some depth perception issues. Also poor posture, because your child is spending much of their time looking down at the ground rather than up ahead to scan for obstacles. If you are noticing some of these issues with your child, get in touch with an O&M to arrange an assessment. Canes do not need to be used all the time. I think that's a really important point. They're a tool that can be taken out and used when they're required and stored in a pocket or bag when they don't need to be used. The skill to develop in your child is the ability to recognise when they do need to use their cane, and that might be at night time, in busy areas, or when they're crossing roads. So crossing roads, something that makes a lot of parents pretty nervous, I think. The best thing I can advise you to do is cross lots of roads with your children and start doing it as young as possible. Teach them about different types of intersections, traffic flow, street signs, and use zebra and audio tactile signal controlled crossings. Do this with them while they are young, and they can visually learn all about these concepts. The picture on the slide is of an intersection, a stop sign, a zebra crossing, and an audio tactile crossing. Nighttime provides many opportunities for your child to develop their travel skills and gain some experience moving with lower levels of vision. I recommend taking your child out into the dark from a young age so that they can learn and understand the different skills they can use to assist with their travel. Long cane training can be provided by an O&M at night time so that your child is prepared for school camps, night school activities such as plays, and family night outings. Effective use of different types of torches, how to use landmarks for orientation, and road crossing skills can all be taught at night time. When taking your child out for a night walk, make it fun. If you're feeling anxious or worried, your child will pick up on this, so try as hard as you can to stay relaxed. Take the family dog, play torch spotting games, or at Christmas time, walk to lots of beautifully lit up houses. And the pictures on the slide are of a darkened footpath through a park and a beautifully lit up Christmas house. Your child will transition into many different education settings in their lifetime. The preparation is the key to make this really smooth and successful. It's important to make a referral for a transition program early. If your child's vision has started to decline and they're having difficulty with their mobility, an O&M specialist can provide lots of support when moving between education settings. An O&M can provide an environmental assessment of the education environment and make recommendations for alterations. These may include painting the tread of steps and stairs, highlighting poles in the path of travel, and the installation of blinds to control glare entering the classroom. The visiting teacher will be able to help the school submit the application and funding is available to assist government schools with the modifications if your child's vision fits the criteria. If your child's vision doesn't fit the criteria and your child is still having issues, we can still go out and do that report for you. It does perhaps mean the school will need to fund the cost of the modification themselves, but there's not too many schools that I've worked with that aren't happy, if it's not too expensive, to actually do that to help your child. It's important for educators to understand that while a child with low vision may appear to move very well through school grounds, it can still be very visually fatiguing, which can affect classroom performance. Environmental modification can help to reduce that visual fatigue. The picture is showing the before and after of a school classroom with yellow tread on the stairs and yellow bands around the poles. Visual fatigue affects children and teenagers in very different ways. It is well worth investigating it and how visual fatigue affects your child so that strategies can be put in place to maximise the use of residual vision. Signs of visual fatigue can be avoidance of visual activity, headaches, inability to change focus from near to far objects and vice versa, loss of concentration, sore eyes and watering eyes. The first picture on the slide is of a really glary classroom. Ensure that glare and light entering classrooms and home areas is controlled by blinds. Also be aware of shiny tables that can reflect glare up into the face. An occupational therapist can make recommendations for lighting plans in the home study area that can be included in a child's NDIS plan. The second picture is about the time of day. Work out when your child's eyes are less fatigued, often in the morning, and which activities fatigue their eyes the most. Then modifications can be implemented to their timetable. The third picture is about equipment. Have your child assessed by an orthoptist for equipment that can reduce their eye fatigue. Home-based equipment can be included in your child's NDIS plan. Obviously for equipment at school, you would speak with your visiting teacher about that. And the fourth picture is about high contrast. Having items around your home in high contrast makes them easier to find and can reduce eye fatigue. The example of the picture is of a black plate and cup on a white placemat. For more advice about visual fatigue, check out the Statewide Vision Resource Centre website or speak to your visiting teacher for vision in other states. A professional development session for staff at your child's education setting is a really important component of their transition. And the picture on the slide is of intersecting blocks saying teach and learn. Because while teachers teach, they also need to learn sometimes as well about your child. There are many benefits to all staff interacting with your child, having a knowledge of your child's current vision, their orientation and mobility skills and goals, and information on knowing when to step back and when assistance may need to be provided. A PD session can also provide an opportunity for staff to wear low vision simulator goggles to give them an understanding of what it is like to move around their school with low vision. Children are generally at school during daylight hours, so attending a school camp can be when staff require extra information about how to support your child. Your child may also benefit from night travel training with an O&M specialist prior to camp for maximum independence. Prior orientation to the education environment is something that can really build your child's confidence before moving into a new education setting. There are two maps pictured. One is a really simple school campus on the top. The one beneath it is a much more complex and difficult campus to navigate. The orientation to the layout of the education environment may take 4 one-hour sessions or 16 one-hour sessions, depending on the complexity of the environment and the current skill level of your child. This preferably needs to occur in term 3 or 4 before the child starts school the following year. And I know my aim is always to make sure that the child knows the school better than all of her classmates when term starts. That's when I know I've done a really good job. Classroom workshops help your child's peers to gain some basic understanding of your child's vision impairment, why they may use particular aids and equipment, and strategies for communication and inclusion. These workshops can be completed in conjunction with your child's hearing and vision teachers. Basic strategies can be taught, such as asking students to come up and say hello rather than waving from the distance, to call your child's name or tap them on the shoulder, and wait for her to turn before throwing her the ball. We can also ask kids to arrange to meet your child at the door to the classroom before heading out, as it can be really tricky to find friends amongst all the uniformed students. We can also teach students to give your child a human guide if it is required. And the pictures of a group of children sitting in a circle, very happily talking to each other. I might just skip that one. The vision impaired community is vibrant, accepting and innovative. Get your child involved. There are many opportunities for your child to connect with other children who have a vision impairment. Meeting other children with a vision impairment gives them the opportunity to be with other children who manage their vision impairment and orientation and mobility confidently. They can speak with other children who are also perhaps unsure of what their vision will be like when they are adults. This experience is invaluable in developing resilience in your child. Your child can develop an additional friendship group away from school, a group to turn to for advice and support when required. Send your child on mobility camps, participate and learn a blind sport such as goalball, swish or tennis. Adaptations can be made for all levels of vision and hearing, so find out what's out there in your state. A good place to start might be Guide Dogs Victoria, Vision Australia, Blind Sports Victoria in Victoria, or the Paralympic Committee. I'm going to talk a bit about NDIS. I must confess I'm definitely no subject matter expert on NDIS, but Holly and Emily just wanted me to talk briefly a little bit about it. So if I don't cover what you might have a question about, please feel free to come and chat to me afterwards. So many children will have already moved on to NDIS, and those that are still to do so, most will have moved on by 2019. The NDIS can provide your child with a range of different supports to support their independence and the development of their skills. Just to make it clear as well, services delivered in schools are not NDIS billable. So I know in Victoria, all the services that we deliver in schools, so things like orientation around schools, they are covered by the philanthropy arm of Guide Dogs Victoria and an agreement that we have with the Education Department. Two major areas in a plan are core supports and capacity building. Core supports are there to enable participants to be supported in their own home and accessing community to the extent that they require or wish. This ongoing support can include transport, low-risk technology, and ongoing guide dog costs. These supports can be spent flexibly across the category. Capacity building is there to build on those supports to enable people to be able to do as much as possible for themselves in order to gain independence. Whether that be therapeutic supports, support coordination, or personal training. For example, where core supports could fund a support worker to assist with some cooking, in capacity building, an OT would attempt to train someone to do this for themselves. That's the difference. It can be tricky to get a therapy included in an NDIS plan when the condition for the therapy has not yet developed, such as with RP in younger children and teenagers. There are examples of where this has gone through in NDIS plans, and there are examples where it's been knocked back as well. I spoke to the support coordinators at Guide Dogs to try and find out some ways that you might be able to try and get some O&M put into your plan. So early childhood early intervention in NDIS for children under 7 years of age requires no formal diagnosis, as long as it's been identified by a health professional that there is some type of developmental delay. If you already have a plan, you could use some of your hours under capacity building, improved daily living, to have a consultation with an O&M about the types of skills your child could be learning now to prepare them for the future. For a new NDIS plan, the justification would be that there is a window of opportunity to teach O&M skills prior to vision loss occurring, to capacity build your child's independent travel skills now, to reduce the intervention required later as they age and their vision possibly deteriorates. It could be argued that even a few hours of consultancy per year could be of benefit to ensure your child is continually developing their skills. If you would like to try and include some O&M hours in your child's plan, a letter from an O&M detailing how O&M's consultancy prior to more significant vision loss could be of benefit. You could contact your local vision agency for this supporting documentation. In existing plans, therapy hours in improved daily living are relatively flexible, and you could use, say, 1 hour consultation once a year with an O&M. It might mean 1 hour less speech therapy if that's what you've intended to spend that money on, but that's an option that you could choose. You could also request funding in your NDIS plan under social and community engagement to attend a mobility camp group program for vision impaired students, or to participate in a blind sport activity or program. If your child already has a vision loss that is impacting on their mobility, an O&M can provide supporting documentation recommending the number of hours of O&M required to achieve a specific goal. The best advice I can provide before you sit down for your NDIS plan is to be really prepared. Lots of agencies, Guide Dogs Victoria, Vision Australia, I'm sure there's more interstate, generally all have a service called a pre-planning meeting where they will sit down with you with experts on NDIS who will help you work out what you need to ask for in your plan. It's often really important to communicate that really clearly to the NDIS planner, and we've found that people that have a pre-planning meeting with us anyway tend to get much better success when their plan comes back.